I want today to talk about freedom and to refer you to a story near the very beginning of the Bible. Actually, it's a story from the book of Exodus. The people of God had a pretty rough time in Egypt, as everybody knows. Imprisonment in the land of Goshen, the plagues, Pharaoh not wanting them to go, and so on, with Moses and Aaron trying to set them free. And the story's picked up while they're in the wilderness, shortly after they escape across the Red Sea. And the children of Israel are moaning, grumbling, and complaining about their leaders. By the way, that's a very common feature, isn't it, in much of life. In the church, people complain about the leaders sometimes. We're always complaining about our politicians and so on, and really often very unfairly. So it's not an unusual situation, but it is a difficult one. Here's what's going on in Exodus chapter 16. The whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin, which is between Elam and Sinai. Some interesting geographical stuff up there. And on the 15th day of the second month after they'd come out of Egypt, they were there in the wilderness. And in the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. And the Israelites said, "If only we died by the Lord's hand in Egypt," because it was so good there, obviously. There we had pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you, Moses and Aaron, you've brought us out into the desert to starve this entire assembly to death. And so the story goes on. Now, here's the thing about this. The children of Israel were in hateful slavery, bondage, lockdown in Egypt. Very little freedom to maneuver in any way. Moses and Aaron give the opportunity for rescue, for a chance to get into a promised land down the track, but through a wilderness where security was not present, risk was present, but the opportunities were immense compared with the opportunities they'd had in lockdown in Egypt. And so, very like much of humanity, given the choice between freedom and the potentiality of rescue through into the promised land and the security, even though the security was horrible and they quickly forgotten, obviously, how terrible slavery was, they chose safety. Now, all of life, is this balance between safety and freedom. There's always that challenge, and it's always a balancing act. It's almost never possible to have complete safety or complete freedom. You could have, on our motorways, for example, a much safer way of driving. We could decide that the top speed limit on a motorway was 10 miles an hour. If we did that overnight, the death rate from accidents on our motorways would drastically reduce. They would be much, much safer places. But we've decided that actually that restricts our freedom to travel too much and the lifestyle we enjoy. And so we've put 70 miles an hour as the limit. But we've decided that 120 miles an hour, 130 or 140, which would get us to our destination quicker potentially, that's too risky. So risk and security are always balancing acts. In our society at the moment, because of lockdown, we seem to be sleepwalking into a massive emphasis on safety and security. We are in danger of abandoning the hard-won freedoms that we had. For example, the government are emphasising safety. The opposition parties are emphasising safety. The trade unions are emphasising safety. The media is emphasising safety. Who's arguing for freedom? The freedoms that our democratic society has fought for over centuries, and now we've sort of given them all up. 3 months ago, you would have been appalled to think that someone was going to ask you to have an app on your phone by which you could be tracked and traced. Who you were talking to, who you'd been with, could be monitored. Can you believe it? And yet, we're about to accept it with open hands. And who'd have believed that 3 months ago someone had said to you, the government will one day tell us you can't see your children and your grandchildren? We'd have been appalled. We'd said that's never going to happen. And so I've been amazed at the incredible way that the British people, indeed Western peoples, have acquiesced almost without a murmur to this unbelievable constriction on freedom. So even if the lockdown has been the right way to go, we still need voices shouting about the freedom to be the humans God longs for us to be. And if it isn't going to be politicians of any party, and if it isn't going to be the media, and it's not going to be the trade unions, who is the voice for freedom? Well, it can be us as a church. So our challenge as a church is to cry aloud for freedom, not for stupidity, not for a lack of wisdom, but to remind people that freedom matters and that we are the voices to cry for freedom which will allow us to flourish in fresh ways. Somebody ought to be crying for freedom. Someone ought to be driving us out of lockdown, maybe into a wilderness for a while, but into a position where we have new ways to relate to one another and new ways to be open and not constrained and constricted, because those things are not great for human society. Indeed, people in the persecuted church already look at us with amazement. They say, "You're seriously allowing the government to tell you what you can do as churches, and when you've got such freedom, look at us in our own countries where we're oppressed by the government. You've given up these hard-won freedoms almost without a murmur." Now, God willing, those freedoms will return. But the price of this freedom is eternal vigilance. And our challenge is to pray for our government, to pray for our leaders, and to agitate and to push for in prayer the freedom to be all that God wants us to be, the freedom to worship, the freedom to pray, to witness, and to live our lives in relation to others. So let's pray to that end.